Around the Block with Cody Diesbourg and Brigitte Pellerin.
The other question that I had about the role of parents is when the kids start to be really good at something, and whether they compete or not, but when they're really good and the parents are pushing and sometimes coaching with the coach, or sometimes kind of not really with the coach, instead of the coach, or pushing so hard because there's two ways that parents do it, two reasons why they do it. One is because they really want their kids to excel, and it's all good, right? It's all positive, except it gets taken too far. And the other one, and unfortunately you see that, is the parent reliving their childhood or living a new one or a better one through their kids.
Yep.
What do you say? What do you have to say about these two different scenarios?
I think we need to set a line of the difference between, being an advocate for your kid and supporting your kid and cheering versus coaching and really teaching. Like if you bring them to a sport, you can help behind, like once they're away from the sport, you can help a lot, right? By taking the things that their coaches have taught them.
Right,
Reinforcing, yes. And that you can share with and can be a positive experience. It's really tough when you have a student that because you can tell just in their demeanor and in the way they approach you, is if their parent is giving them conflicting answers or conflicting information, right? And so that's really tough. So I'm a big believer that if you bring them to somebody that you trust,
you should let that
person
coach,
do what they're doing. And we have method to our madness. In karate, it's not just about succeeding. Sometimes the greatest achievements come after you fail, right? And this is something that karate, I believe, has over top of a lot of other sports, where the end all be all is winning.
Yes.
Right? Karate has those lessons no matter what, right? And this is where we're able to teach, But as far as as coaching and stuff, so cheering and supporting is one thing, but giving them, information on the sideline is a lot harder, to deal with when you have so many voices coming at you when you're in the ring.
This drives me nuts.
Plus, I can tell you this, is that the role of a coach is very overrated when it comes down to competition. Yes, it's a little support system and they're there to help you, but all the work's been done in the dojo.
Right.
All the coaching has been done in the dojo. I mean, old school rules was there was no coaches because you did your coaching and training at the dojo. We never had coaches really when I was growing up. We had our instructors there to cheer us on and support us in our wins and losses.
And pick you up after.
The coaching moments, well, that was the coachable moments. Those were the teachable moments afterwards was, any student that I get in the ring, I pull them aside, no matter if their parent is there. I walk them away from the crowd.
and
I have that first moment of, okay, so you did really good with this. Your movement was great. You were really slipping the kick. Keep doing that. Said when you got caught though, it was because of this.
Right.
You still won. The next guy's going to be a little tougher. So let's watch the next guy and let's see what you can do against them on this one. But keep your movement going.
Right.
So you really don't want to flood them. Right? And then you usually see them go off to their parents, and the parents, well, some of them, right?
Right.
But at least you had that first moment with them to be able to set it straight. But yeah, it's a tough game when you have a lot of parental involvement in the wrong way, right? But a great support system is even better, right? Which is really what it should be.
So we get to know, as trainers and coaches, you get to know the parents too. And you get to know from some of your athletes how the parents behave, and you try to use that too to the advantage of the student. So if you have parents who are very good at hugging and saying how proud of their kid they are, this is great. So you do the lessons, you do the karate part, then send them off to get a big hug and a kiss and the whole thing from mom, and this is perfect. But when you have parents that are going to try and say this, that, the other thing, then you make sure you put your piece in first.
I always make sure I put my piece in first, regardless, because, it's
you're not that strategic about it.
I'm not that strategic.
No,
I just keep it simple. But it's not just the parents at a competition scene that you sometimes have to worry about. It's about the other competitors. It's about their friends and the other parent. Yeah, there's so many different personalities in a competition that you just want to make sure that you catch them while they're fresh and set that what they need to keep doing and what they should probably change for the next round. But when they're in the ring and they're actually like sparring, they're doing the competition, you're really, as a coach, you're making sure that the rules are followed. That's number one. So if there's ever something where you have to arbitrate, you don't have to make your fighter, or you don't let your fighter worry about that. You're taking the pressure off of that and having them focus on the match. That's really what they are there for. Plus the safety of the fighter. You know, there's some hard-headed people that may or may not know when to they're injured.
So getting a kick to the head, to pick an example at random, and having other people look at you and say, you should really sit down now. Say, no, I can do it.
Yeah, having that moment to take a breath and recoup and then go back in. But yeah, and then the other thing is basically to encourage what they're doing. You know, the number one mistake of a coach is to tell them what they're doing wrong first, while they're fighting. Yeah. Because if they're not in that mind frame of doing it, that's what they're thinking about now, right? It's like, you keep moving to your left. Move to my left.
Right.
Right? You know,
they'll hear the last thing. And
yeah, so you want to leave them with what you want them to do.
Move to your right.
Move to your right. Move to your right. But if they're not moving that way, now as a coach, the best way to do it is to say, okay, well, he's moving to his left. So now what technique's going to work that way? Right? You know, you got somebody that's kicking the whole time. And you're like, okay, you got to use your hands too. They're not using their hands. Well, I'm working with kicks. Right? So you have to be very adaptable as a coach. And I think that's the experience level of what us coaches in the scene
It's hard to coach.
It is, and it comes from experience. And I think maybe that's the piece that, you know, the link that's missing when some parents try to do the coaching is that they should really be involved with the sport fully if they want to be part of that, right?
So compete yourself, then you'll know better what your kid's going through, which is fortunately one of the advantages that I have. Because I compete in the same sport, and I've had to coach my daughter because sometimes she's up for fighting, that's her turn, and none of you guys are around, and so I'm it. And so we talked about that, me and her. When that happens, do you want me to coach you, or would you rather be alone? And making sure she understood.
Well, there's been times that we were both standing next to each other, and she said, "I want my mom to coach," and I was like, "All right,
all right." And sometimes she wants
no hard feelings.
No,
right?
exactly. Then I made sure she understood that I absolutely would not be miffed, and no way. That's your fight. You pick your coach. But sometimes it's just me, and so I've had to coach her sometimes, and then I have other parents of other kids, because they know each other, they know my kid, and they come in and they coach on top of me, because there are times when, knowing my daughter and knowing the other fighter, there are times when I have to just leave her alone a bit to do her thing, right? I give her a couple of pointers, and then otherwise I'm not shouting instructions all the time, because I think that's what's going to work. That's my decision. And then they come in behind me and over my shoulder will start shouting things that she should be doing. I'm sure this has happened to other people.
Well, I can recall one time that I may have shouted something in excitement and you gave me a look. But I did know what that was. And I went, sorry. I should probably walk away. No, just support from the side. But it's an instinct sometimes where you get excited because you're into it.
And sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm wrong. And that's not, obviously I'm sure what you had to say, whatever it was, I don't really remember that one. But I'm sure it was a good advice. But
maybe not in that moment and what you guys had done,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
You guys had a game plan.
Right.
You had already set up
I do remember, and she won her fight. Did she?
She did.
Yay.
Yeah. So it's something where you guys have set up a game plan.
Yep.
Right? And what I was saying was probably not part of that game plan.
It was not. And so that's what but sometimes you have other parents that do this, and it's tough sometimes to be a coach, even if it's not your own kid that you're coaching, to have to look at that parent with that eye that says, kindly but firmly, would you just not do that right now?
You have that kind look, yes, when you want to.
Because you don't want fights, because you spend so much time with these people, so you don't want to have bad blood or anything in the dojo, because that's no good. But you have that fine line. I'm sure that's even, I hear in hockey, competitive hockey, it can get pretty ugly with parents and the fights and stuff, and they get really involved. Some of the parents, I gather.
Heard that's the reason why some kids quit.
Because they can't stand that. Yeah.
That, yes.
So we're lucky in a way, because karate parents are even the ones that go outside that draw outside color outside the lines when it comes to that, they're not nearly as bad as what I hear about from hockey and others. Hockey is the biggest one that I hear. Yeah, I could see that making the kids quit, and you don't want to be that parent ever.
No. No, definitely not.
That's an easy one. Don't be the one that everyone knows is the jerk. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, but there's always going to be one.
And we have to deal with it. It's one of those things.
Comes with the territory, right?
If life were easy, it'd be boring, though, right? That's
true.
part of it. So we have to just learn to manage our interpersonal relationships.
Yep.
We become experts at everything. Anything else you want to add?
I guess the difference between motivating your kid and forcing them to do stuff would probably be a good one to add in. The best way to motivate, if it's something that they have a goal, is to write it out with them. Set a goal, set 3 goals.
Right.
But then go through. There's two steps that go with that. Is how are you going to achieve that goal? So what are you going to do? And you write out 3 things that you're going to do to achieve that goal.
Steps, basically.
Basically, yes. And then what can you foresee that is going to stop you from achieving that goal? So maybe a distraction that might stop, or something that's going to be making it harder for you to achieve it. So let's say the kid's goal is to get their next belt. Right? Well, what are you going to do to get your next belt? Well, I'm going to go to this many classes a week.
Right.
All right, which classes are you going to go to?
Right.
Okay, let's make a plan. Good. And I'm
Put it
going
on the fridge
to,
even.
Yeah, well, I'm going to practice at home the other days. Okay. For how long? Right? Okay, 15 minutes a day? Yeah, that's perfect. And if they're like 2 hours, make a realistic goal.
Yeah.
Right? It's this is where the coaching and the mentoring part can happen with the parents. And then, what is going to make it hard for you to achieve that goal?
That TV show?
And you're
The
thinking
friends?
of a million right now, right? You got your friends, you got your TV, you got your homework, you have
the
this
birthday
and that.
party, this other thing,
Then there's the plan to get around it. So each obstacle that you find, you help coach them through how they would get around that.
Right.
So if it's friends, okay, well, if you have these days set up to do your practicing, these days to do your training, you still have these days to hang out and stuff. If it's TV and video games, okay, well, what's your priority? Well, it's, I want to get my next belt. Okay, well, then you have to set that ahead of the other ones. Make sure that when you do your 15 minutes first before you sit down. That's the reward. Okay. What about if it's, what was the other one I said?
Oh, homework.
Homework, yeah, that one.
That you kind of have to do.
But that's the thing, is that has to set precedents.
Even if you don't want to, you have to.
That's right. Yeah. Well, if you don't do your homework, then you're not going to be able to do your karate and stuff because you're going to be bogged down doing extra work for school. Right? So get your homework done, do your practice, and then you can have your fun. And then and this can all be fun too, but it's something where you're setting a time management.
And it teaches them control because they get some control.
Yeah.
In that.
Well,
and
all of it
them.
is their answers. You're just mentoring them through the process.
And you want to have goals that are real and worthy. So you don't want to just have, a small thing. That can't just be, well, I want to manage to go 3 times a week next week. Well, for some kids, I gather this will be a goal, but for other kids, maybe you want to stretch them a little bit more than that. And your kid, so you know what would stretch them. But you don't want to stretch it that far either, so that it becomes too big.
Well, they'll fail that way, right? You're setting them
I want to
up
win
for
the world
failure.
championship. Yeah, me too. But let's think about something more realistic for this week.
Well, and there's different levels of goals, right? You have your short term, your mid term, and your long term. That can be a long term goal.
Right, exactly.
And you can keep that. It's just you may not be, okay, well, what do you have to do to get there first? Well, maybe I need to get a little more experience. And it's, okay, so let's go to your
the medium
midterm goal of getting your next belt. And those can change and stuff. And the long term ones, like you'll get them finished quicker, right? So they'll always be changing, and it's great to set new goals. But once it's done, once you've set it, you need to put it somewhere where it's visible, and
remind
be
them.
accountable for
That's
it.
right.
So set a date, right? That you want this achieved by,
right?
And that way you can actually see the progress in action and motivate more, right?
So here's an easy one for you. I see this often with little kids, but sometimes surprisingly older kids. Parents who, well, if you go to class now, we'll go to Dairy Queen, or we'll go to right away for small things that you shouldn't have to reward the kid for doing, like just their basic everyday chores or classes. Give them a special treat.
Well, do you remember what we were saying about controlled decisions?
That's not a controlled decision, is it?
No, that's taking all the power and giving it to your kid. Now, there is some moments where, you can surprise them. I think would be better. Like, hey, guess what? But if it's the only reason why, they're going to karate, there's a deeper issue.
Yeah.
Or their sport, there's a deeper issue that needs to be addressed. And if you just use that reward as a crutch, it's the same as being an adult and using a crutch. Right.
Doesn't work.
Whether it's drinking, whether it's, social life, and then, disregarding the important things.
It makes you weaker.
It makes you weaker because you become something that you need to be able to go about your day.
I like sometimes out of the blue just have a treat for the kids, and they say, "What's that for?" So just because lately in the last month or two, I found you were working well. I didn't have to argue with you so much. Just I thought you'd been behaving better lately, just generally. And I thought, yeah, why not give you a treat? And so I find that they really, really like, because it's a surprise and they didn't actually have to do anything for it, just generally be good. And then it makes them look back, yeah, was I really better? Oh, good. How can I keep being better, right? They think about that because they want another treat later. But yeah, treats have to be, in my experience anyway, they have to be not always obvious. It's good to have surprises.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to deny that I've been sympathetic to a few parents along the way where I'm like, yeah, you know what? Give him what he wants. That kid's a tough kid. But yeah, it's definitely in moderation and controlled would be the best
When
way.
the parent has a control over
That's
that
what
one.
I'm saying, yes.
All right. Good. I think that's it.
Cool.